Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Dhena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah.
Great to be with you tonight. Why don't we stretch for a minute? Just stand up, take a 2-minute break, and if you see somebody you haven't met yet, just introduce yourself. And we'll sit back down in a couple of minutes. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare hear Haribol? There's no better use of one's time, according to the Bhakti scriptures, than coming together in small groups or large, of course it's relative, and doing this kind of chanting. And one of the reasons is given by the great teacher, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who single-handedly introduced the process of chanting as main means of practicing bhakti yoga over 500 years ago. He was a monk who, on the order of his guru, personally walked great expanses of India barefoot, going village to village. There he would meet people, connect with the head spiritual leader of the village, and teach that person what the ancient scriptures of India have said would be the most powerful of means of self-realization in the present age. When we talk about ages, there are large expanses of time which are defined by a particular mood, and therefore there is a particular method through which one can attain spiritual elevation. The present age is called Kaliyuga. Yuga means a period of time, which happens to be hundreds of thousands of years. You may have experienced that certain times of the day are more productive for you than others. Has that ever seemed the case? Yes. And other times may not be as productive? Or certain times of the year are better for you. Some people have better times in their life than at others. And of course there are seasons. Some seasons mean we just have to get through them sometimes. And other seasons are more opening, and we're out creating rather than hunkering down. It's a time for everything. So in the universe there are cycles, according to the ancient Vedas. And one of those periods of time during the universal changes is called Kaliyuga. And during this period, it's kind of like a winter period. I don't know if you notice, but sometimes around us in the world these days, there's just a little bit of negativity. And seemingly more complexity than we could ever have imagined. This is something that's predicted in the ancient yogic scriptures, which say that during the Kaliyuga, there'll be inordinate and intractable complexities. But they say there's one good thing about this age, and that there's an extremely powerful process for self-realization, which is called Sankirtan. Sankirtan is what we're doing now, coming together in the village and chanting together. And the efficacy of this process is described that when one is able to make this vibration, which is a sacred vibration. In Sanskrit, in one place it's called Paramakshara Krite, the supreme combination of syllables. Studying the science of sound, the great sages of India said that sound carries consciousness. Also, there's a defining statement that sound can liberate us or sound can bind us. Anavriti Shabda means by transcendental sound, sacred sound, one can become uncovered and one can see one's real spiritual essence. On the other side, if one consumes, either deliberately or by accident, lower sound vibrations. For instance, I would just venture to say, if you spent, let's say, the whole weekend listening to the 24-hour news cycle, you may not be in a peaceful state of mind by the end of it, because it's actually designed in order to irritate you in such a way that maybe you'll listen to more to try to overcome the anxiety that you have, or maybe you'll consume something, but there's something behind it that is inherently disturbing. It's a lower kind of vibration, and these distinctions are made in the bhakti scriptures, that there's low sound and there's high sound, and even above high sound there's transcendental sound. And that sound that actually opens us to a higher self. And I was thinking about that the other day when I was back in our home base in California, and I stepped into a little shop, and I saw an elderly couple just about 50 paces behind me when I was coming into the door of the shop. And I was standing in front of the store window from the inside looking out. I saw the elderly man of the couple stop, look into the window, and I thought, oh, he's looking right at me. And I was looking at him, and I even raised my hand. And then I noticed he was fixing his hair in the reflection on the window. He didn't see me at all. And I felt a sudden twinge of disappointment that, oh, I wasn't able to connect to this other soul. And he had no idea that there was someone behind the window that wanted to connect with him. In a similar way, when I go about attending to my life situation, I see the next thing that I have to do. I project into the future the next anxiety that I'm likely going to have to face. And I become so absorbed externally, I'm only seeing the reflection of my life. But I don't see beyond it, that actually underneath there's life, my life, which is very much different from my life situation. It's something that's so inherently filled with joy that just by seeing myself and not the reflection of myself, I immediately feel grounded, peaceful, happy, even joyful. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that this chanting together of sound which is beyond the closed universe, it's coming from another realm, cleanses the mirror of the mind so that one can see what's beneath it. The consciousness, the soul that is us, that is looking out. And also we can experience the origin of ourself, that from whom everything else emanates, that consciousness that's sustaining us at every second. And that, he said, did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is the preliminary benefit of chanting together. And therefore he recommended that on a regular basis one practice this chanting. All that's necessary is a set of ears which are thrown in free along with every purchase of a human body. Plus you get a free tongue. And of course the Bhakti scriptures point out that a lot of living entities have tongues, don't they? Yes. Can name a couple? Aardvark.
Cats.
Cats have tongues for sure. We've seen them many times.
Snakes.
Snakes have tongues.
Anteaters.
Anteaters, mongoose. You can go through the list of all the living entities, starting with A for aardvark, B for bears, C for cat, and go all the way through and find there's a lot of tongues out there wagging in the world for various reasons. But the very definitive statement in the Bhakti scriptures is the tongue is the most important of all the senses. It's the gateway sense, leads to all the other senses. And if one uses one's tongue deliberately to generate transcendental sound, and then just catches it in these little satellite dish-like extremities. It'll go from here into the heart. And the heart is the driver of the chariot of the body. Whatever the state of our heart, that's where we're going to go. Not just in this life, but Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, when we leave this body, we'll be directed to the next atmosphere, the next kind of body that we take according to the consciousness that we've developed. And that's dependent on what's come through here and ended up here. A while back when I was walking in my neighborhood, which is near the San Francisco Bay, I noticed that every storm drain along the way has a placard. It has a picture of a fish, and next to it, it says, "No dumping, drains to bay." I was walking along chanting my private mantras that I chant every day, and then I thought, these ears are like little storm drains. And if I ever get a tattoo, which probably won't be anytime soon, I would get a little placard above my ear with a picture of a fish. And it would say, "No dumping, drains to the bay of the heart." As whatever I allow to go in here ends up here. And that's what drives me in my life. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught, be very careful about what you allow to go into these holes, called the ears, because it will direct which way you go in your life. So this is a very deliberate process of meditation. It's very active, it's very joyful, because rhythm is a universal language. Anywhere you go in the world, people, not just people, even animals, respond to rhythm and melody. They'll come running from every part of the world because, according to the Bhakti scriptures, rhythm and melody come from the spiritual world. And then when they're reconnected with what's going on, the vibration in the spiritual world, then there's no difference between the spiritual world and this world. You can be transported there through the transcendental sound. So this is a little launching pad we're all sitting on. If you don't want to be transported to the spiritual world, we have a waiting area out there. You can sit out there until the music's over. We do have earplugs, and you can put them in. But if you'd like to be transported, we'll go ahead and sing the next song, which again is what is called Paramaksharakrite, the supreme combination of syllables. It's a mantra, which contains sacred names of our original divine source, which connect us directly to the spiritual world. And I'm going to begin with a couple of mantras to offer respect to my guru, my teacher, who taught me the chanting of the mantra. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Shri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisheshta Shunyavani Paschatya Deshatarne Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Ananda Murari, harmonium. Ozo, violin. For our flautists. For the kartal players. For the Hare Krishna singers. For the Hare Krishna dancers. For everybody in Denver. Everybody in Colorado. Everybody all over America. Godari Hare Krishna. We just came a couple of days ago from a retreat center in North Carolina where a couple thousand people couple thousand people came from around the world to join together in the hall that's about 5 times bigger than this, and just stay together for several days to chant from morning till evening, and the results are quite noticeable. We heard lots of reports from people who were there who felt unburdened. That's one thing we heard a lot of people say. Suddenly felt unburdened. They felt a sense of well-being. They had a lot of insights into their lives and sort of refreshed everything, starting with just sitting in the transcendental sound vibration. It's like a bath for the body, mind, and spirit. And this is the idea that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had many years ago, that the whole world could join together with this kind of sound vibration everywhere to help to become unburdened from the problems of the world, gain spiritual insight. People could treat each other with civility, seeing that we're actually from a common origin and that we all are related on the spiritual level. Did anybody have any reflections from the chanting tonight? Like any thoughts, experiences about the chanting or anything that you felt? I just remind you that sharing means caring. I got that from the Salvation Army. Okay. Yes.
I really appreciate what you were saying about the storm drains. So I was thinking that this Maha Mantra, when it enters my ears, it's so nourishing to my heart.
Yeah, when a big rain comes, the water gets stored underground, and then when a drought is there, you can draw from underneath the earth. There's aquifers, big oceans of water underneath the earth. So one of the ideas behind this chanting is whenever you have the opportunity, take in as much as you can. It'll stay in there. You may not see it right away, but everything that goes in stays in, actually. And it will be something that you can draw on at other times in your life. You may just experience a little bit more perspective than you had before, when you're dealing with complicated or trying circumstances. Reflections are easy, it's just anything you felt or heard or saw while chanting. Yes?
I would say about midway through the chanting, I started to tremble a little bit actually. It felt like a quiver, like it would just come and go. And ultimately I just felt like, how you were saying, like all the perplexities of material life were kind of like just disappearing in a sense, and that spiritual world, that spiritual awareness actually like was here in the room with all of us. So yeah, it's really
Thank you for that reflection. There's a verse I'm thinking of in the Bengali language that's sung by one of the great teachers of bhakti named Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he said, Krishna bolbe jabe pulaka habe jorbe anki bolitai. Bengali is a very beautiful language. It's got a lot of round edges on it. But he says it when you chant this mantra, then you'll feel in your body actually, there's emotions that will come out eventually that you'll see. They're all in there, and you'll feel the spiritual release. Sometimes tears come to people's eyes. Sometimes they feel trembling, things like that. It's very natural. Because we don't even know what's going on within our body and minds. We're barely aware of how we digest food, what to speak of how we're processing all the kinds of news that we get every day from every angle, or all the hopes and expectations that we have. And we're carrying a lot that we don't even know. But when we hear the transcendental sound, it tends to release a lot of those extra things that we're carrying and help us get in touch with our higher spiritual self. A couple more reflections, so these are really good. Yes?
Thank you. I was feeling that when you get absorbed in this chanting, congregational chanting, there's a sense of, like, we feel alienated a lot of the time everywhere else. But here, if you really absorb yourself in the mantra, you feel like you belong here. Like you have an internal place here.
Yeah, I was just in New York City a few weeks ago. So we did an experiment. And I want you to tell me what you think happened from our experiment. I'm not going to tell you the result. But in New York, I was staying in an ashram. It's like a monastery. It's in Brooklyn. And we get up really early in the morning. We have our meditations starting around 4:30 a.m. and some readings and things like that. And about 7:30, 7:45 in the morning, we just go out the front door. See, these drums are special because they have a rope around them, so you can actually walk around with them. That was the original purpose, so that you could take them around town. So we tried it in Brooklyn, and we go out. It was like just pushing towards 8 a.m. And we had about 20 of us been in an environment like this, and then we just burst out the door. And with the cymbals, and it had a small microphone, so it could be. And then we went around a wide city block, people going to work and things like that. What do you think happened? Take a guess. Just what do you think would be the result? Huh?
Made people happy.
Made some people happy. Some people just totally ignored it. And I was thinking, like, it's really hard to ignore. It's kind of loud, and people like walk along. But yeah, everyone had different reactions. Some store owners invited us in. Like we were walking by, we waving, they're waving, they open the door, and we just go inside and do the chanting in there. But it's something like, even if you tried to ignore it, you couldn't deny it. It's like a really powerful spiritual sound. And it contrasted with kind of the humdrum of like going to work. Shishirata Govinda Ki Jai. This is an altar of worship where there's an ancient traditional process of worship where the forms of Krishna are attended to, and this actually brings a sense of connection to the beauty of the spiritual world. Because in the spiritual world there's form, there are relationships, there's all kinds of variety. And that we reproduce that here in the temple environment, so you feel right at home in the spiritual world. All the comforts of home, the original home. Oh, you were going to say, who is next? Please.
Yeah, I just want to say that it was really sweet how you entered into the Kirtan, saying that this was a launch pad. We're all going to take off into the spiritual world.
You kind of did at the end, I saw.
Yeah, that's what I was like, sounded
there was a couple of people sitting right next to me, and they left like right before the Kirtan after you said that. And somebody took their spot, and I told them, I said, can you believe the people just took off and they were in the waiting room? I guess this is a launch pad. And then throughout the Kirtan, I was like having to use the bathroom, and I was like, how can I leave now? This is a launch pad. I've already made a comment about like these other people leaving, and I was like, well, I have to use the bathroom. I'm staying on the ship. And I went to the bathroom, and I came back, and then everybody was dancing around when I came around the corner, and I actually took off, and it was just great timing. And I thought that the dancing was actually taking off.
Yeah, and sometimes those little choices that we make all the difference in the world. Just I'll stay 1 minute longer, and then all of a sudden there's a life-changing event that happens. And about dancing, I mean, what is dancing anyway? There are a lot of ways to move in the world, like driving to work. That's kind of a, like... and why am I driving to work? Because I have to. Because I have to pay the bills. That's a kind of movement in the world which is called karma. Because I have a debt. The material world, it means a place of, like, in order to live, I have to take. There's a saying in Sanskrit, jivo jivasya jivanam. One way or another, even if you're vegan, you have to, consume out of the living entities. You do as little as possible to harm others. But live a peaceful existence and be ahimsa. But still, it's the nature of the material world. And when I take, I have to give back. There's a debt. That's what karma means. But when one comes to the spiritual platform, there's movement that isn't connected to karma, no debt. And that's called joy. And when you're moving out of joy, it's like it's a dance, really. It's graceful. There's no other purpose behind it except to celebrate the fact that you're alive. You've always been alive, you always will be alive, and you're connected to the spiritual world. So dancing is one of the primary forms of expression in bhakti, but it's spontaneous. And we found up at the retreat we were just at that everyone would be sitting in this big auditorium. There are no chairs to get in the way. And then after a while, they're hearing the mantra, and then the pace would speed up, and then people would spontaneously jump up and dancing. And one of the participants was telling me he was dancing so much that his calves hurt. He's very athletic. And then he said oh, I can't dance anymore. And then the next kirtan came and he jumped up again, as if like he couldn't help himself. And this is not only purifying, but it's actually what we're looking for. Movement for the sake of joy and happiness. And it's all brought to bear with the chanting of the mantra. Please go ahead.
I haven't had a chance to be here very much because of an illness. And when I hear the mantra with everybody dancing and everything, it makes me feel calm, peaceful, almost like I'm at home again. Anybody that prayed for me, thank you. Thank you very much.
So, thank you very much, Ananda Murari Prabhu, for holding these open sessions for chanting every Thursday, right? And I'm really happy I got to be here. And thank all of you for coming out tonight. Just by sitting in one place and making this vibration, my spiritual teacher used to say that you actually help the whole world. He would say that the vibration you make here actually goes out and around the world 7 times. And it has this effect. People, even though they may not hear it directly, they feel the purification from the mantra. So you can do good for the world by creating this transcendental vibration. It purifies from the inside and then manifests in the outward environment. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Natari Armarman, hey, Natari Armarman, Natari Armarman, Natari Armarman, Natari Armarman.